Today we're going to work on a mental model called thinking from first principles and apply that to cryptocurrencies. And a bit of the background for all this is that my girlfriend started becoming interested in investing in cryptocurrency, and I wanted to help her think through the process and what could work out and what wouldn't work out and why that was the case. So hopefully this is useful to lots of other people as well. Okay, so the idea for thinking from first principles is you look at the most basic, most fundamental aspect of anything. It's usually applied in physics. So instead of let's take a pretty useful example to begin with. So Elon Musk is famous for using first principles when starting his companies. So he asked, why is space travel so expensive? The cost of nearly all products has decreased, but space travel is the same as it was in 1960. And so here's a graph. You can see how computers have dramatically reduced in price, but space travel is the same, and that's strange. And people say, oh, it takes a lot of energy, there's a lot of special materials that you need to go to space, and that's why the price is so high. But Elon used first principles thinking instead of assuming. We all know what assuming does, right? And so he broke down the costs. Where are all these costs coming from? So it turns out only 1% of the total cost is fuel. 2%, only 2% is the raw materials, like carbon fiber, aluminum, and steel, all these different things, right? So 97% is overhead and profit. It just seems like there's a lot of room for improvement there. So why is space travel so expensive? Well, the answer is, one, because we only use each rocket once. So imagine if every time you got in a plane, they fueled it, they took it to the destination, and then once they got to the destination, after they let the passengers off, they destroyed the airplane. Then they have to build a new airplane for the next trip. So you can imagine how expensive air travel would be. And that's why he's so keen on being able to land a rocket and then fix it up and being able to send it on its way again. That would really reduce the price of space travel. And then the raw materials are so small because there's so much bureaucracy and whatnot that causes overhead. So I think one example was that the harness for an astronaut, like the seatbelt, the fancy seatbelt they have, costs $10,000. And a racing harness, one of the seatbelts used for auto racing, only costs $500 and would meet all the specifications required to go into space. It just hasn't been certified. So basically it costs 20x the price of what it should for the same exact thing. So that definitely inspired him to start that company, and you can apply the same to Tesla. First principles thinking makes you realize that electricity is just way more efficient than gasoline. Also, why start a boring company? Because travel underground is so much better than flying above ground, and so much more safe. And there's a whole lot of space down there as well. So how do you use first principles? First principles are self-evident assumptions that aren't derived from anything else. Use this mental model by repeatedly asking questions until you reach a self-evident truth or a first principle. So let's take an example. Why did I buy apples? Because they're tasty. Why are they tasty? Because they're sweet and delicious. Why are they sweet and delicious? Because they are, damn it. So you can see at some points they're sweet and delicious, and that's it. And that's the first principle, and that's as far down as you go. So you keep on asking questions until you reach the bottom. And this is really a self-evident truth that they're sweet and delicious. And you can keep on asking questions. Why do you think they're sweet and delicious? And it's like, I don't know, because my neurons say they're sweet. My brain interprets that as sweet and delicious. Why do your neurons do that? Because they've evolved that way, and the atoms work that way. Why do the atoms work that way? Because that's the way the quarks work. And you get down to that. Once you get down to, you can take everything down to quarks if you keep on asking questions. But it's not really a useful level. The first principles are where it's a self-evident truth. Why are apples sweet and delicious? You just can't really go any deeper than that. That's the most fundamental level. So let's apply this to cryptocurrency. So for cryptocurrency, or for any currency for that matter, what makes a currency valuable? So let's take an example. So why would you rather have dollars or cows as a currency? So you can argue both cases, right? So why would you want to have dollars? Well, they're easy to carry around. People accept them. They have value. I don't need to feed my dollars. Things like that, right? And say, well, but you can argue the other side. Why would you want to have cows as a currency? Because some countries or some places really do use cows as a currency. I used to live in Kenya, and the bride price there every time someone gets married, the man's family pays a bride price to the woman's family, and it's always calculated in cows. So it could be 11 cows or 12 cows or 13 cows or whatever it is. And sometimes the price is actually paid in cows and sometimes it's paid in their currency, which is shillings. But nevertheless, it's always calculated in cows. So there's benefits of cows being a currency. One, the main thing is you can eat a cow, but you can't eat a dollar. So worst case scenario, you've always got that cow to eat or milk or whatever, but a dollar doesn't have intrinsic value. So let's look. There's actually 7 main common characteristics of a successful currency. So let's compare these 7 characteristics across 5 different kinds of currencies. We've got cigarettes, cows, gold, dollars, and Bitcoin. I chose Bitcoin specifically because different cryptocurrencies stack up differently here. Now, cigarettes, you might think that's ridiculous, but no, actually in prisons, concentration camps, people use all kinds of things as currency, especially cigarettes are very common. I heard Roger Ver say in a podcast he was in prison before he became an investor in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency startups. And he said that there they actually use cigarettes and they use ramen noodle as a currency. And based on his experience with that, he realized how important Bitcoin was going to be because it met all these requirements, how people spontaneously create currencies. So is a cigarette durable? Yeah, they're pretty durable. Of course, they don't last forever, though. Are they portable-ish? But you can't. If you wanted to have $1 million worth of cigarettes, that'd be a lot to carry around. If you wanted to buy land with cigarettes, that'd be a real pain. Are they divisible-ish? You can divide them down to, I'm not sure how many cigarettes are in a pack. It's like 15. You could divide it, 15 ways, but then the cigarettes would start being less durable once they're no longer in a pack. Are they uniform? Yes, a Marlboro Gold is a Marlboro Gold the world around. There's limited supply, at least in a prison. They're acceptable in a prison because, well, they are. That's a currency, and they have intrinsic value. Worst case scenario, you can always smoke them. Cows we've already covered. Gold, is it durable? Yeah, it can't rust, and that's why it's been used for millennia. It's kind of portable. I mean, it's kind of a pain to carry around all this gold, and that's how dollars and similar fiat currencies were developed, that instead of carrying around gold, you carried around a piece of paper that said it was worth a gold. And then pretty soon we stopped talking about the gold altogether. It just became the pieces of paper. Is gold divisible? You can divide it down to the atomic level. Is it uniform? 24 karat gold is 24 karat gold. There's limited supply because you can only mine so much at a time. There's always increasing gold in the world, but never that much. It's kind of acceptable. You can find anyone in town who's willing to trade your gold for dollars, and you can do anything with dollars. So it's more acceptable than a cow as a currency, and it has intrinsic value because you could, at the very least, cap your teeth with it or make idols, as they did in Aztec culture, and in many other cultures in the world, make idols out of gold. Dollars, basically, they they fit all of these criteria. So they're better. It's better than gold, obviously, right? Except in intrinsic value. Gold dollars used to be there used to be a dollar's worth of gold for every dollar in the U.S. That the U.S. issued, but there's not anymore, and that's so you hear some people talking about going back to the gold standard, and that's the idea is you can't print more dollars than there is gold, and there's definitely merit to that idea, but in general, people have decided that's not the best way to go. So dollars, like euros, like yen, is a fiat currency. You'll hear that term thrown around, and it means these currencies don't have anything backing them up. They don't really have any intrinsic value. They're not pegged to any gold or anything like that. They're not asset backed. So a dollar that's backed by gold would be asset backed currency. I say dollars have an intrinsic value ish because I know at the end of the year I can pay my government debts, my taxes with dollars. So they have that going for them. Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, it's pretty durable. At least by itself, it's great. But if you hear in our podcast, Greta, my girlfriend, points out that if all the electricity in all the world shut down, then we would have a problem. We wouldn't be able to the gold would still be there, but the Bitcoin would not. Unless you've written it down, unless you've written your private key down on a piece of paper, but then the mining machines wouldn't be working either. Is it portable? Yeah, you can carry your phone around anywhere. It's divisible. It's uniform. Though I've heard some things about how some Bitcoin are slightly different than others. I have to research that more. There's limited supply. It only goes up to 21 million Bitcoin, and is acceptable. Now it becomes kind of shaky. So it's acceptable some places. There's Silk Road-like websites you can buy things on. You can buy in some places, but you can't really buy a cup of coffee. One, because it's not generally acceptable. Two, because the transaction fees now have gotten a bit high for that. And does it have intrinsic value? No, there's no intrinsic value to a Bitcoin. The only value of it is that a Bitcoin's worth a Bitcoin because the network in the world says it's worth a Bitcoin, and that's it. And there's no intrinsic value to it. So you can see that from first principles, Bitcoin and many cryptocurrencies have the same features as successful currencies. If you can add up all these yes, nos, and ishes, Bitcoin is somewhere currently on the level of gold and cigarettes in terms of value, in terms of how good of a currency it is, but not quite as good as dollars. And to reach that point, it would need to be acceptable. So in a future videos, we'll talk about what could make Bitcoin acceptable. And then I think that the market capitalization for gold is around $8 trillion, and the market capitalization for Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is something like $500 billion. So at least in this analysis, at least Bitcoin's got some room to grow to get up to gold. It can grow by about 20x till it's reached the level of gold. But unless something changes, unless it becomes intrinsic value or general acceptability of Bitcoin, it will be limited in its utility. So we'll pick that one up for another time.